Good evening, everyone. Agenda item 5.2, mooring at West India Dock North, Hertsmere Road, London. Can I please ask Paul Buckingham to introduce the item, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this item is a planning application, and as you say, it's the address is the mooring at West India Dock North on Hertsmere Road in Canary Wharf, and the proposal is for the mooring of a barge with an attached floating garden to provide a spa facility comprising an open-air heated pool, sauna, plunge, treatment rooms, alcohol-free cafe and wellness facilities. The recommendation to your committee is to grant planning permission with conditions. Just to say that boats themselves don't require planning permission, but obviously the mooring of this and then the use of the boat is what requires planning permission. So a little bit of an unusual one, but I think if you just think of it in those terms, you'll be able to understand the issues, I'm sure. There is an update report that's been published this evening on this that just deals with some additional representations that have been received in objection to the application since the main agenda was published, and they're summarised in the report for you. And then just a clarification on some extra conditions that we're recommending. There is a slight typo in the update report, so I'm happy to go over this again once we come to it. But if permission is granted, we would recommend imposing an opening hours condition, and it's just the times within that condition are. I think there's a typo in part of that in the report. So when it talks about the external open spaces accessible between 9 and 2300 hours, so i.e. 9 and 11 p.m. on Mondays to Saturdays, that's not what we were originally recommending. It's between 7 o'clock in the morning and 2100 hours, so 7 o'clock and 9 p.m. on Mondays to Saturdays, so 2 hours earlier for start and finish. So just to clarify that, but happy to come back to that if necessary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just before I move on, our online guest, can you hear us okay? Our online guest, can you hear us?
Mr. Orr, can you hear the meeting? Okay. Mr. Orr, can you hear the meeting?
Yes, I can indeed. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I've been told you can hear me. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for your time. My name is Andrew Orr, and I represent Number 1 West India Quay Residents Association. And the proposed barge is 20 metres from our front door.
Can I just stop you there, please?
Yeah.
Sorry, we've not got to that part of the agenda. We were just checking that you could hear us.
There's all sorts of issues with the time. The application has been the main topic of conversation at 2 AGMs of 158 apartments. The approval for the application is 0. Not one resident at both. Hello? Hello? Hi. Yes, of course. And then will you just let me know when I need?
And I think, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Can I now invite the planning officer, Katie Ari, to give the presentation on this application, please?
Good evening. The scheme I'm presenting relates to a mooring at West India Dock North, Hertsmere Road. The site, shown by the red rectangle, is located at West India Dock North, adjacent to the two travelling cranes circled in green on the North Quay. Directly to the north of the site lies the Marriott Hotel and Executive Apartments at 1 West India Quay. Immediately to the west of the site, within the dock, lies the Absolute Pleasure yacht, marked by a star, which is a moored boat that operates as a hotel with a private function space. The site is located within the Isle of Dogs activity area and the Isle of Dogs and South Poplar opportunity area. Here is an aerial image of the site. There is a large concentration of food and beverages establishments either side of North Dock, particularly within the historic West India Quay warehouses to the west and within Crossrail Place to the east. There are also some residential units in close proximity to the site, with the nearest residential premises found on the upper levels, 13th floor and above, of the Marriott Hotel building and above the restaurants in the West India Quay warehouses. In terms of the heritage context, the site itself, marked by the yellow star, is not within a conservation area, but it is located close to the West India Docks Conservation Area, shown in pink here. The site sits adjacent to the Grade 1 listed quay walls, copings, buttresses to the import and export dock, and is near to the Grade 1 listed warehouse at the western end of the North Quay. The proposal is for a new, permanent commercial mooring for a Dutch barge vessel. The barge would operate as a spa and cafe. It would contain the following: an open-air, naturally filtered and heated lido, a roof terrace, spa facilities including a sauna and hot and cold plunge pools, a cafe, changing facilities and a WC, and cycle parking facilities. The barge would operate on a pre-booked basis only, and the external spaces would only be accessible between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. Monday to Saturday, and 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Sundays. Here is a CGI image of the proposed development from above. This is a CGI image from the east, looking onto the cafe. The council carried out a process of public consultation for the application. In total, 88 letters of representation were received, of which 63 were in objection and 25 in support. The main reasons for objection were noise concerns associated with the proposed use and antisocial behaviour, a loss of water space and detrimental impacts on biodiversity, a detrimental impact on the heritage of the area, and negative visual impacts. There were also concerns expressed about a lack of security for the barge and objections on the grounds a spa is not needed in this location. Now we turn to the key issues analysed in the report. Firstly, land use. The application would result in a loss of 735 square metres of water space. The development plan sets out that development should not result in a loss or covering of water space unless it is for a water-related or water-dependent use. The proposal would be a water-related use on the grounds it has been specifically designed to enhance the enjoyment of the water space. The swimming pool and cafe have been positioned to face the water so that people can enjoy the view. The cafe and spa use are acceptable in this location. The site sits in the Tower Hamlets activity area, and the cafe and spa would complement the surrounding uses and contribute to the vibrancy and vitality of the area. Now we turn to design and heritage. The top image shows the dockside elevation, and the bottom image shows the quayside elevation. The proposal makes use of a formerly commercial barge, which is in keeping with the former industrial nature of the dock and would add visual interest to the area. The proposal also brings up heritage considerations. It is considered that the proposal, by virtue of its scale and the fact that it would not involve any interventions to the fabric of the adjacent Grade 1 listed dock wall would not cause harm to the setting of the dock or any nearby heritage assets. In addition, the barge would sit low in the water, ensuring there'd still be views over the barge and across the water. This would help retain the open nature of the dock. Now we turn to neighbouring residential amenity. The nearest residential units sit in the Marriott Executive Apartments, which is located 90 metres north of the proposed barge, and all of the units are located at 13 stories and above. Given this, there would be no opportunities for overlooking or loss of privacy as a result of the development. In addition, there would be no daylight and sunlight concerns, nor would there be an undue sense of enclosure or a loss of outlook for occupiers of the residential units. The barge would involve sedate activities such as swimming and people talking in the cafe, and no events or parties are proposed. It is also worth noting that the area around the application site is already exposed to noise from the restaurants and bars at West India Quay, and the noise input from the barge would not contrast with the existing climate. The applicant has submitted a noise impact assessment, which has been reviewed by our environmental health officers. They have no objections on the grounds of noise disturbance, subject to conditions. If permission is to be granted, the following noise conditions will be applied. The noise mitigation measures outlined in the noise impact assessment must be undertaken. No music or amplified noise can be audible from outside the premises. The premises will be open between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. Monday to Saturday, and 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. on Sundays. The external spaces would only be accessible between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. on Monday to Saturday, and between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. on Sundays. There would also be a condition in place stipulating the maximum capacity. Now we turn to biodiversity. The site is located within a site of importance for nature conservation. Our biodiversity officer has no objections to the proposal. The proposal mitigates any harm caused by providing a significant biodiversity gain in the form of a floating garden with 165 square metres of vegetated floating rafts. For the reasons stated in this presentation, and with further detail within the committee report, the officer recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions and informatives set out in the committee report. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I now invite Andrew Orr to address the committee in objection, and he'll be online. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your time. My name is Andrew Orr, and I represent One West India Quay Residents Association. And the proposed barge is 20 metres from our front door. This application has been the main topic of conversations at 2 AGM meetings. Of 158 apartments, the approval for the application is 0. Not one resident at both AGMs likes the idea at all, and very few of our concerns seem to have been addressed with the 2 subsequent consultations. The overall perception from residents is sadly that their objections are being ignored, and this is not a viable business. No similar spa, swimming pool or restaurant is open over these proposed hours. 90% of these in neighbouring Canary Wharf are open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. We are not aware of anyone in the area going to an outdoor pool or spa at 8 a.m. or 10 p.m. In Zone 1 and 2, there are 9 outdoor swimming pools. It is summer and 4 of these are permanently closed. In the City of London, almost nobody will swim outdoors from September to June, and yet there is an outdoor swimming pool proposed for 158 owners to look at, rain, hail or snow. The application goes against conservation in the area. The River Trust were already contacted 1 month ago to collect a dead swan in the location of the proposal. As far as we are aware, it is the same set of 3 cygnets trailing behind the barbecue boat where individuals were throwing food. We are not allowed a diesel vehicle in London, and yet there has already been approval for schooner boats to run on the same fuel. We have videos and footage of oil on the water and exhaust smoke in the air. We think this department ought to have raised an objection. You cannot walk alongside the quay because of the exhaust fumes. The new application also goes against environmental protection, and we were surprised that there was no objection from them. They've already received several registered complaints regarding the noise levels for the Absolute Pleasure boat, which is alongside the proposed barge. The parties are loud and disorderly with or without amplified sound systems. Over the 3 consultations, you have received 116 confirmed objections. The Residents Association has copies of these objections, and most of these came directly from the property owners who live 20 meters away. We are not executive suites, we are apartments. If there are only 29 respondents who were for the application, then surely things just don't add up. We purchased our homes to be near water. 70% of this water disappeared with Crossrail, and now the remaining water surface area is systematically being chiseled away. What is wrong with it as it is? We don't need to make it a theme park that it's becoming. To sum up, we hope that not one person would like their council to allow their neighbours to be an outdoor nightclub, which we already have with Absolute Boat. 6 floating barbecues and 4 floating jacuzzis, which have already come from schooner boats, let alone an outdoor swimming pool, spa and cafe. The current situation is creating issues for your departments. Please oppose this application. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Can I invite Alex de Jong to address the committee in support of the application? You have 3 minutes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Professor Alex de Rijke. I'm an architect and founder of DRMM Studio. Unprecedented climate change and COVID focused our attention on our relationship with the planet, the ways in which society operates, and to our physical and mental well-being. Yet simultaneous with an increase in demand for facilities, there's been a reduction in amenities such as swimming pools and lidos. In recent years, a great many existing local authority facilities have had to close due to high running costs and radical cuts in government funding. The Blue Mind Spa project is an entrepreneur's response to societal need for exercise, but also to the growing desire to be more healthy in body and mind, and to counter the stress of busy work and travel patterns. It's a less onerous business model than a typical public pool in that it is much smaller, with a more diverse offer, and it does not need or use a large and often energy-inefficient building. The design proposal for a pool and spa on a barge moored on a vacant quayside space near Canary Wharf Station is based on research into demand, existing examples of floating pools in European capitals, and our own first-hand experience of quality marine projects, for example, Battersea Power Station Jetty and Hastings Pier, for which my company, DRMM, received the Sterling Prize, the highest accolade in UK architecture. We've consulted closely with Tower Hamlets Planning Authority and modified the design accordingly. We've consulted with local businesses, Canal and River Trust, and the Canary Wharf Harbour Master, all of whom support the idea, offered advice that we took, and who see real benefits to the dock, the community, and also the general locale. We specifically held a consultation in the adjacent Marriott Hotel to present the proposal to all the local residents, not just those above the hotel. And once they'd studied the scheme, all those who attended were positive about the proposal. However, letters against the proposal have been separately generated, I believe based on some misconceptions. And so I'd like to say I share their concern, I understand their concerns, but I welcome this opportunity to state this is categorically not a party boat, not unduly noisy, and not a front to anything else.
You have 30 seconds left, sir.
Not now or in the future. In fact, it's the opposite. This is about health and well-being, an exercise lap pool with sauna, and alcohol-free cafe on a traditional Dutch cargo barge. There'll be outside sun decks and internal changing rooms, showers and treatment rooms. There will be a green planted pontoon alongside to sit amongst reeds and contemplate the water and to encourage wildlife. The character of the barge will be respected and retained. Access from the dockyard will be secure and carefully designed to ensure no after-hours trespass can happen. I'd like to thank the committee for this opportunity to state our case.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. Can I now invite committee members to ask any questions to officers as well as the speakers? Thank you. Councillor,
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a small question. It is, I believe, a floating vessel. Is removable? Is it any? I mean, is there any plan or anything in future that it can be removed from here to there?
Obviously, it is a mobile structure, and yes, it could be moved. If it's successful, which the client and I believe it will be, then we hope it will be popular and stay there. But if it's not successful, then yes, it would move. If it's generally seen to be of benefit to this community, then of course we would like it to stay there.
My second question is, since it's not a sheep or it's not a, it's purpose-built structure, yeah? What is the lifespan?
It's 1961.
Sorry to stop you. Can we just please house rules again? If we just ask the question and wait for the answer, can we not have a dialogue, please? Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just clarifying. It's not a new structure. It's an existing Dutch Kampenaar barge, which was built in 61, and that's a cargo vessel, and the cargo we are proposing is the swimming pool and spa facility. So the boat remains a cargo ship as original, and very much in keeping with the history of the docks. There were many of these vessels on the Thames and in these docks, transporting goods in and out of London, and the difference is it's no longer goods, it's a facility for public use.
Councillor James.
Thank you. I have a question on that for the applicant. Thank you very much. It's I'm, as a member of the public, so looking at our planning policies, indeed, talking about open water networks and recreation on open water is about public good. So what benefit am I going to get as a member of the public walking past regularly, as I do, the West India Dock? Am I going to be able to how am I going to be able to access this amenity, and how much will it cost me to do so?
Thank you. I will pass your question to the client, who will be managing the facility and explain the arrangements for access.
Sorry, we have to have, if anyone else wants to speak, they have to register. So if you just give me 1 second. Just on fairness, I would actually uphold that, and if you can answer the question, please.
It's not a problem, I can. I simply wanted to include them in the process. But it's a mixed basis of membership and access for the public, depending on the day of the week and the time of the day. So that the idea is that everyone can use it. Some people will want to use it more regularly, and others will want to visit. In terms of its relationship to the open space of the water, I'm sure I don't need to remind everyone that it's an enormous expanse of water, and even today, there were people swimming in, not immediately on the site, but I noticed further down the dock, towards Millwall Dock, many people actually, in weather like this, jump in. And obviously that isn't safe. And this tries to address the point that people who do want to swim.
Any other questions?
So, just since it's an open swimming pool and it's heated and everything, how many months or weeks do you reckon it can be open to the public? My first question. And second one is it's $1 million question. I mean, who do you target as a customer? And I think the councillor already asked about the prices. And I mean, is there something middle class people or anybody can? I mean, what sort of price range for use of the facility?
The target audience is anybody who wants to swim and get well physically and mentally. We believe from research there's a growing demand, and you can see all over London the popularity of open air leaders. In terms of the extent of the use, whilst there are those who like swimming in cold water, the idea with this is that it will be partly open and partly enclosed, so that when it's windy and so on, it is still possible to swim and not be extremely cold. I'm not able to answer the question about the cost of access. I'm afraid I don't know. That can be answered, but my client, who will be managing the facility, would be able to do that. I'm not au fait with the particulars of that.
You may ask, you may refer. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So with regards to the price point, we are still fairly early in the journey in terms of figuring out exactly how much the facility will cost to deliver. But absolutely, there will be affordable access for a whole range of groups of people. That's a really important part of the scheme. It's not going to be like I don't like the word, but a luxury spa. It's more of a bathhouse model, so it's inspired by communal bathing traditions like the Finnish sauna, the Arabic hammam, facilities like this where people came together to bathe and to swim. So the philosophy is one of community building, and it's not to be considered a luxury spa.
Any other questions? I have one. Yeah. What, in terms of process, do you have for in terms of the employment? Is there any kind of scheme or that you would be given to locals to employ locals for this venture? As you know, in terms of we have various issues in terms of employment. So, do you have any plans to include the locals within the employment?
Yes, thank you. So I guess there are two aspects to that. The first is the fit out and development of the barge itself, which is likely going to take place in Holland, because that's where the barge lives, and they have the shipyards that can deal with the kind of project of this nature. With regard to the operating of the business itself when it's in situ, we don't have a policy in place at this time, but absolutely I'm committed to employing local people, and I'm happy to take any sort of conditions. I noticed in the previous application that was part of it, and we're absolutely happy to do the same.
Councillor James.
Thank you. Question from me for Officer Kitty Eyre. In assessing this application, did you look at the European Union Water Framework Directive, and was there any assessment based on the water quality of West India Dock and how this development might impact on that?
I didn't look at the EU water framework, but I am aware that we're not in the EU anymore, so that wouldn't be relevant here, sadly. And then on your next point, we consulted the Environment Agency, and we consulted the Canal and River Trust, and we consulted our biodiversity officers, all of which we'd expect to take into account those issues and raise objections if they thought that was a risk to the water quality associated. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, can I just check if everyone's had an opportunity to ask questions or speak? Thank you.
Yeah, could I just come in on just one point? You mentioned about employment opportunities. Those sorts of obligations are normally applied to major developments, and so I think the floor space involved here would be below that threshold. Having said that, if the committee feel that there could be additional public benefits to be gained by going down that route, then the normal obligation is reasonable endeavours to secure 20% local employment. You'd have to sort of demonstrate why you wanted to sort of depart from the conventional policy, given it's sort of underneath that sort of threshold. But that might, sorry, I beg your pardon, that might be linked to other considerations where you've identified perhaps, shall we say, harm in other areas. So that is an option for you, but that might be something that you'd want to discuss before you go to the vote, just to make sure, see what everybody thinks on that particular point.
Thank you for that, Paul. Councillor James.
Thanks, Chair. Have we moved on to a discussion about the merits of the application in the round? Are we going to do that before we vote? Can we do so? Yeah? Okay, I just want to make a point just to bring the committee's attention to the policies in the local plan of policy D, particularly DOWS4, which is particular around water spaces, and talks about the loss and covering of water space, and I think the loss of water space here is very significant. I think the applicants and the officers have tried to argue that it's mitigated by increased biodiversity, and indeed, but I am sceptical as to the accessibility of that. That also brings me on to the next point. The other policy that's relevant about open space, and I think it's the same one, D.O.W.S4, talking a lot about water space, but also water-based use and recreational activity, and it again talks about public use, public enjoyment, and I'm sceptical. I mean, my questions might have alluded to the fact that this is more of an exclusive facility, as it were, that would mean that only the public in large who currently enjoy the water by its accessible nature, i.e. be able to walk past it, is not there anymore. Similarly, I don't get the arguments put forward in the papers about the fact that it needs to be a spa necessarily. I think there are plenty of other spas, particularly in the Canary Wharf area, and I don't know why a spa is the best thing that's going to get people onto the water and at the water level and enjoy the water more. I think it's better kept as an open space. I've got further comments as well, but perhaps about the quality of water at West India Dock, but perhaps that's not pertinent to this application. and perhaps there could be biodiversity delivered by CRT in a way it does at other open spaces in Tower Hamlets, rather than just using this dock for pure commercial purposes.
Anyone else? Councillor Avey?
I would agree with a lot of what Councillor King has just said. I think one of my other concerns is the proximity to this other boat, this absolute pleasure yacht. Because when you, I'm just looking at the sort of the aerial view of it, they are very, very close. And what it essentially seems to do is gives you this much of a gap to see in between. Obviously, that's a slight exaggeration, but I think those arguments don't quite stack up about access to the water when what you're doing is actually restricting access to the view of the water to about this much, maybe. It doesn't seem to quite, that argument doesn't seem to quite add up to me. And yeah, I also appreciate that you're still in, of course, early stages, and you won't have come up with official price points yet. This is the kind of thing that is really quite often not accessible to everyone, and in particular I think there'll be a lot of residents in the area that this won't be accessible to, and I think we have to really consider that.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Just one additional point. I know members are interested in kind of who the sort of the target audience, if that's right, who might sort of consume this sort of facility if it went ahead. The actual sort of price point wouldn't be a material planning consideration, although I think Councillor King has already alluded to this, and Policy D of WS4 Part F talks about sort of continuous public access. I mean, obviously, this is a private facility, so whatever the price point is, I don't think the applicant is saying that there would be unfettered public access. So I think the committee obviously needs to take a view there. But there are sort of other sort of parts of the policy that I think is sort of more strongly complies with in terms of things like the biodiversity enhancements and just giving generally people the opportunity to experience the water space in a different way than they would simply by walking past. So there's a bit of a balance there, I think, in terms of that policy.
Thank you. Moving on, can I now see all those in favour of the officer's recommendation to grant permission? All those in favour? All those against? Anyone abstaining? That's it. Paul, if I can ask you to confirm the result of the vote and the committee's decision on this application.
Thank you, Chair. So on the votes of 4 in favour and 2 against, the committee as a majority of voters agreed the officer recommendation to grant planning permission, subject to the conditions in the main report and also the additional condition that I referred to with regard to opening hours in the update report. Thank you, Chair.
This concludes the business for this meeting. The next meeting will be held on the 10th of August 2022. Thank you.